y'all, this is Kayla with Live Oak Nest, and today I want to show you how to make hem art. So I have several of these listed on my website. I used to make these as part of my shop before I had kids. They're a little bit time consuming, and so that's why I don't make them custom anymore. But I do, if you're not wanting to make your own, I do still have a few listed on my website that are for sale. So I want to show you how to make these. It's very simple. It just takes a little bit of time. So you're gonna need a wooden art block. So I get these wooden panels online, and I'll link this down below. I've gone ahead and painted them, and I painted them with just white chalk paint. So you can kind of tell it's not completely covered. I kind of like the whitewashed look, and so that's what I did on these two. If you wanted to, you could rough them up. It just kind of depends on how you want it to look. And then you're also gonna need some of this medium gel, acrylic medium, I'm sorry, and then it's in the matte gel color, so it's not shiny at all. So there's lots of different versions of this. I've used this one a lot, and I really do like it. And then you're also going to need your hems, and I will link where I find mine down below. I think it's called heminary.org, I believe. But if you're wanting to make these to sell, you need to make sure that the hem is in public domain and it's not under copyright. And you can usually find that out on that website. If you're making it for yourself, then it doesn't matter if it's in copyright or not. But they have tons of hems there, and you'll probably be able to find your favorite hem. You want to figure out what size you want it, and then I manipulate the hem in my design program. And you also want to flip it, so you want it to be backwards. So you can obviously tell this is the hem, it's well with my soul, and it's backwards when I had it printed. So you also want to make sure that the ink is printed using a laser printer and not an inkjet printer. So it's best to like have them printed at like Staples or Office Depot, someplace like that, and unless you have one at home. If you have an inkjet printer at home, this isn't going to work well for you. So make sure you get them printed on a laser printer. Okay, so to get started, I am going to grab my scissors and just trim this out. And I just put a little guideline here, so I'm going to trim out that and then show you how to put it on. I like to use one of these just cheap sponge brushes. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of wet my sponge brush, because it helps the acrylic medium just to go on a little bit easier. So I'm just gonna dab that in and then squeeze out the excess water. You could also just run it under running water. Okay, that's good. And then I like to slap some of this on with a knife. The trick about this is just trying to get the right amount of this stuff. If you put too much, it's very hard to get the paper off, and if you don't put enough, your ink won't transfer. You could also do this with like photos. I mean, it's probably similar to where people do photo transfers with Mod Podge. It's kind of the same concept. Okay. So I just like to get it on here like this and then kind of smooth it out before I even get my thing on my sponge brush to smooth it out. So you can see it's really thick stuff. And it does kind of start setting up, so you gotta kind of work a little bit quick. So you want to make sure it's covered completely, or you'll be able to notice when you remove the paper. Okay. Okay. Now this is how I did it with this part. So I just want to make sure this is on here pretty even. So I'm going to spread it out, and then I'm going to go back and kind of lift up by pushing the brush in the opposite direction to take off some of the excess. Because like I said, if it's too much, you're going to have a really hard time getting the paper off. And I can tell that's too much, but this is the easiest way I figured to do this and get good results. Okay. And then just smooth it out on the edges. Okay, then you want to take your hem and just line it up and press it down. And the best thing I found to do with this, I like to get like another piece of paper, so like an old envelope or something, and just really push it down good. And I do it like in a little bit of a circular motion, and it really just helps the acrylic medium make contact with the ink so that it transfers it well. So you also don't want to slide it around a lot because it's going to mess it up. So try to keep the paper in place, and then just go over all the ink really well with your envelope or your paper or whatever you're using to smooth it out. This will also help if you have any air bubbles, or if you have like a glob of medium, it'll just help smooth it out. And it also helps it from wrinkling. I've done a few that, like if there was too much acrylic medium, it'll start pulling and causing the paper to wrinkle. So the most time-consuming part of this is just letting it dry. So you need to wait about 12 to 24 hours. I usually do this and then come back the next day and remove the paper. So that's on there pretty good. And there's not any air bubbles, so I like that. And so far it's not wrinkling. Sometimes you can let it sit for about 15 minutes and you'll see if it's gonna start wrinkling, which is fine. It won't mess it up too much unless the whole thing is just really wrinkled. So we're gonna let this dry overnight and then come back and I'll show you how to remove the paper and seal it. Okay, so I've had these sit overnight, so they're really good and dry. So you're gonna need some water. I like to use like a microfiber towel, and then also these Scrub Daddies or some kind of sponge works really well. If you're using one of these Scrub Daddies, make sure it's kind of warm so it's not quite so stiff. But you're just gonna want to wet your paper, and we're essentially just gonna wet it really good and then rub all the paper off. And then the acrylic medium pulled the ink, so the ink won't rub off with the paper. So I just use my hand, let it soak in the water and get it kind of soft. Okay. And then I usually kind of start on the outside. You can see like as soon as I start rubbing, it's going to start pulling the paper up. And I typically do this by the sink because it does get kind of messy. But for the video, I'm going to do it right here. So you can see it's just kind of a process. If you're doing a bigger one or something, it just takes a little while to do. So you want to make sure if you're using a sponge, you're not rubbing too hard or rubbing too much in one spot. The more you rub, the more likely, and the harder you rub, the more likely you're going to take off some of the ink. And you can seal them with poly, you can seal them with wax, you can do polycrylic. I usually do polycrylic over polyurethane. So I do that or wax, and I love to use wax on these because it's so quick. And I haven't had any problems with them holding up. See if I got most of it off. So there we have it. All the paper's off on this one. And it looks like the ink transferred really nice. I don't see really hardly any spots that didn't transfer well. Anyway, so I'm gonna let this dry really good. You don't wanna wax it if it's not really, really dry because it'll start crackling. So I'll let it dry. The best thing to do would be wait overnight again, and then the next day come back and apply your wax or your polycrylic. So I'll come back on and just show you how I wipe on the wax once it's good and dry. Hey y'all, so I'm back and these hem arts are good and dry. So I have a couple of different ways that you can seal them, and so I'm going to show you that. So the first option would just be to use just a plain top coat. This is my favorite brand and finish. So it's completely flat, it doesn't have any sheen to it, and I really like this one a lot. So I'll link to this one in the description. You can find it on Amazon. Another option would be this Johnson's Paste Wax. This you can find, you can probably get it on Amazon too, but you can pick it up at Lowe's, and it's really strong stuff. So definitely try and do it outside or with the window open or something like that, because it is very strong. But this goes on really smoothly and it dries really well. And then this is Fusion Mineral Paints wax, and this is the espresso color. So I think for this one, I am going to kind of rough it up a little bit and then apply a little bit of this wax before I apply some of the Johnson's Paste Wax, just to kind of give it a little bit more of an antique look. I've not used this on one of these before, this espresso, so I'm just going to kind of test it in the corner and see what I think. So it doesn't take very much. And you can see it's just going to kind of pull out some of the texture and make it look a little worn and a little aged. And I really like this color a lot too. It's not quite as dark as some dark waxes. And if you ever get too much, you can always remove dark wax with clear wax. So that's a good little tip in case you feel like it's just too much. So I'm going to take Johnson's paste wax, and this I have had for many years. I've never had any, I've never bought another can of it. It lasts so long. So I just wanted to pick up a little bit in a couple of spots where I felt like it looked a little too heavy. So there you go. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and wax the outside edges here. Cool. I really like how that turned out. So line them up here so you can kind of see the difference in the color. So these can be, I mean, you can handle these right away, but they'll take a few days to cure. So, but yeah, they're perfectly good to display, and that's all there is to it. I really hope y'all have enjoyed this little tutorial. I just think these are such beautiful pieces of artwork. You can hang these on the wall, you can use them on bookshelves or as part of your vignettes that you create, or you can use them like I have here on the mantle. They're just so pretty, and they're just beautiful and meaningful pieces of art. If you make a hem art, I would love for you to share it with me. You can tag me on Facebook or Instagram at Live Oak Nest, and I will see you next week for another fun tutorial.